What if the greatest dilemma of your life was choosing between true love and your deepest dreams? Claire left everything behind to live with Jack in the village, believing she had found the perfect balance, until a devastating secret and an irresistible offer threatened to destroy everything. What would you do if you had to choose between the past and the future? Claire and Jack had been married for a few months, and, together, they decided to settle in the African village, the place where Jack had grown up and lived his entire life. The decision, which seemed right at first, soon revealed the challenges they would both face. Jack could never get a stable job in the village. The scarcity of work and limited opportunities meant he had to work even harder. The small mud house where they lived, built with the sweat of his labor, reflected the simplicity and daily struggle for survival. The days were long, and the tranquil rhythm of the village, which had once fascinated Claire, now seemed suffocating. The village, with its deep traditions and culture, was not very welcoming to outsiders. Some villagers looked at Claire with distrust, whispering about her intentions. The fact that she had left her comfortable life in the city to live there made no sense to many, especially because she was white, and the cultural difference seemed to create an invisible barrier. "The people," Claire began to say as she looked out the window, watching some children playing in the dirt street, "they look at me as if I'm an intruder here." Jack, sitting at the table, raised his tired eyes. "They're not used to changes. Neither was I at first when I came back here." "But it's different," continued Claire, turning to him. "I left everything behind. My career, my friends. And for what? Sometimes I feel so lost here." Jack sighed, understanding his wife's internal conflict but feeling helpless about the situation. "I know it's not easy," he murmured, "but I thought that together we could overcome this. The village can be difficult, but this life is what I know. We just need time." Silence fell between them for a moment as Jack reflected on the reality they faced. He knew that conditions in the village were limited. No matter how hard he tried, he had never managed to get a formal job. Opportunities simply didn't exist. Even with all his experience and willingness, the scarcity of the market pushed him to basic survival. The house he had built with his own hands, a small mud structure, was the result of years of hard work, but even that didn't seem enough. "What if," Jack broke the silence, "what if I start planting in the yard? Fruits, vegetables, we can try to sell in the village market. It wouldn't be much, but maybe it would help. It could be a start." Claire looked at him with a mixture of hope and concern. She knew Jack was trying, but she also felt the weight of difficulties on her shoulders. "Do you think that would solve anything?" she asked quietly. "I don't know if it will solve everything," Jack replied, standing up, "but it's what we can do now. If we don't try, we'll never know." Jack hugged her, and Claire found comfort in his arms, as always. Since he was her refuge, she felt protected with him like never before. They were happy, despite the difficulties. Love always prevailed. Determined to find a solution, Jack began preparing the soil in the yard of the house. Every day, he dedicated himself to planting fruits and vegetables, hoping that this small initiative could bring some relief. Claire observed his effort with a mixture of admiration and sadness, still wondering if this was the future she really wanted. The village continued with its simple routine, but for Claire, each day seemed more challenging. And although Jack did everything possible to mediate tensions and support his wife, he knew that their future there would depend on much more than simple harvests. In the following months, Claire began to notice that there was something about Jack that he always avoided discussing. Every time she tried to engage in deeper conversations about his life before the village, he would dodge, change the subject, or simply remain silent. At first, she didn't give it much importance, thinking that perhaps it was just his reserved personality. But over time, curiosity turned into concern. One afternoon, while walking through the village, Claire met one of the elders, a man of advanced age but with a sharp spirit. They talked about the village, local stories and traditions, and the topic finally fell on Jack. "Jack," the elder began, looking at Claire with a certain seriousness. "He's a good man, always has been, but he carries a heavy past." Claire felt a knot in her stomach. "Past? What do you mean?" The elder looked at her with an expression that indicated he knew more than he was willing to tell. "It's not my story to tell, child, but I know that before coming back here, he had a very different life. A family, a wife. Those words hit Claire like a punch in the stomach. A family, she repeated mentally, unable to process what she had just heard. Jack had never mentioned having been married or having children. Why would he hide something like that? She thanked the elder and left, her mind full of questions. All the way back home, her head wouldn't stop spinning. At first, she tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was something too painful for him. Maybe he was trying to protect her from unnecessary suffering. But the more she thought about it, the more betrayed she felt. How could she trust Jack if he was hiding something so important about his life? Upon arriving home, she found Jack in the garden, tending to the fruits and vegetables he had planted. She observed him for a moment, feeling a knot in her throat. He seemed so serene, so at peace with his new life there. But Claire could no longer see the same man. What else might he be hiding? Jack, she began hesitantly as she approached. He looked up, noticing Claire's serious expression. What's wrong, Claire? Has something happened? Why did you never tell me about your family? The words came out faster than Claire had planned. Jack froze, the color in his face slightly paled, and he averted his gaze. The silence that followed was suffocating. Who told you? He finally asked, his voice low. Does it matter? Replied Claire, her tone harsher than she intended. You should have told me, Jack. I'm your wife. How could you hide something like that? He took a deep breath, struggling to find the right words. I didn't want to hurt you. My past is complicated. I don't even know how to begin talking about it. Well, start, insisted Claire, crossing her arms, her heart beating hard with frustration. You deserve to know. Jack sighed, finally sitting on one of the steps of the mud house. I was married, yes. I had a family, but they're no longer here. An accident, he paused, fighting against painful memories. I lost everything. After that, I couldn't keep living there. I came back to the village, trying to escape from everything, from the past, from the pain. When I met you, I didn't think it would matter. Claire felt a wave of empathy mixed with pain. Now she understood the weight Jack carried, but that didn't ease her feeling of betrayal. I can't believe you thought that wouldn't matter, she responded with a trembling voice. How can we build something if you hide the most important parts of who you are? Jack, visibly affected, just bowed his head, unable to respond. The silence between them was almost deafening. The revelation deeply shook the relationship between Claire and Jack. She already felt out of place in the village, struggling to adapt to a life that didn't seem to belong to her. Now, with this new secret revealed, Claire began to question even more if she had made the right decision. What do you think of this story? Do you believe Claire is facing too many difficulties for love? Don't miss what comes next. The next morning, Claire began to feel strange, with nausea, and her body seemed different. At first, she thought it was just the stress of life in the village or some temporary health issue. However, as the days passed, the symptoms only worsened. Claire then decided to take a test, and upon seeing the positive result, her heart raced. She was pregnant. Sitting on the edge of the bed, Claire held the test in her hands, looking at it in disbelief. How is this possible, she thought, as a mixture of emotions invaded her. Although she knew pregnancy was natural in marriage, the news came at a moment of complete uncertainty about her life. She was still struggling to adapt to life in the village. She missed the comfort of the city, her job, the opportunities, everything she had left behind. Now, with a baby on the way, those insecurities seemed to multiply. How am I going to raise a child here? Did I make the right decision by abandoning my life in the city? She wondered silently. When she told Jack about the pregnancy, he reacted in a completely different way. His eyes sparkled with excitement, and he hugged her tightly. Claire, this is a blessing, he said with a voice full of joy. A second chance to have a family. Jack, who had lost his former family in a tragic accident, saw the pregnancy as an opportunity to start over. He already felt great love for Claire, but the arrival of a child made him feel renewed, as if his life was finding a new purpose. However, Claire didn't share the same enthusiasm. She forced a smile when she heard Jack's joy, but inside she felt suffocated by doubts. She didn't want to disappoint him, but questions about her future kept running through her mind. Is the village the right place to raise a baby, she thought, as she watched Jack plan a future for them there. Jack, realizing that Claire was increasingly worried, tried to help in the best way he knew. He intensified the care in the garden, determined to improve their financial conditions to support the new family. His first harvest was a success. He managed to sell fruits and vegetables to some villagers, and with the money began to expand his land, planting even more. Each day of work in the garden was a way to show Claire that they could have a good life there. "We'll make it, Claire. I know the village isn't the city, but we're building something together," Jack would say, trying to calm her. "We're going to have a family. That's all I've ever wanted." Claire looked at him, feeling the weight of her own indecision. She knew Jack was doing everything possible and appreciated his efforts, but the doubt persisted. The desire for freedom, to resume her career, and to live in a place with more opportunities now clashed with the reality of becoming a mother in a place where she hardly felt part of the community. The pregnancy, which should have brought joy, was creating a new kind of pressure on Claire. She found herself in an increasingly deep dilemma. On one hand, there was the love for Jack and the life they were building together. On the other, the fear of losing her identity and her dreams in the simplicity of the village. While Jack took care of the garden and planned for the future, Claire was lost in thought, trying to find answers to questions that seemed to have no solution. One morning, something happened that Claire could never have imagined. The job offer came in an elegant envelope, with the seal of one of the most renowned animal conservation organizations in the world. When Claire opened the letter, her hands trembled slightly. She had dreamed of opportunities like this for years, and now she had one right in front of her. It would be a great advancement in her career, an opportunity to reconnect with the purpose that had motivated her so much in the city. The proposal was clear. She would be responsible for leading a new conservation project in a critical region of Africa, something that could consolidate her reputation as one of the best researchers in the area. But with that offer came doubts. Accepting it would mean returning to the city, to the old world she had left behind. And more than that, it would mean leaving Jack, the village, and the baby that was on the way. Claire spent the entire afternoon looking at the letter. Jack didn't know about the offer, and she didn't have the courage to tell him. He was so committed to taking care of the garden, expanding the plantations, and building a future for them there. How could she tell him she was thinking of leaving? Her heart was divided in a way she had never felt before. "What do I do now?" Claire murmured to herself as she observed the yard through the window. Jack, with his back to her, tended to the plants with a serene smile on his face. He seemed so happy, so at peace with the life they were building together. And that only increased the weight of the decision Claire had to make. Now I want to ask you, the viewer, what would you do in Claire's place? Would you maintain the stability of the new life in the village, or would you follow your dream of returning to the city and resuming the career you love so much? Leave your comment. I'd love to know how you would react to this complicated situation. Still without answers, Claire decided she needed time to think. She told Jack she wanted to visit the city for a few days, see family, breathe the urban air again. Jack supported her, not knowing the true motives behind the trip. "It'll do you good. Go back, see your friend Sophie, spend time with your family," Jack said as he hugged her. "Just don't take too long to return, okay?" Claire forced a smile, but her heart was tight. She said goodbye to Jack and days later was back in the city. The contrast was immediate, streets full of people, lights, the constant sound of cars and conversations. Claire felt a wave of familiarity, but also of strangeness. The city that once seemed so alive now seemed chaotic, disorderly. Still, a part of her still missed that fast pace. Upon arriving at her friend Sophie's house, Claire poured out everything she felt. "Sophie, I'm so lost. I love Jack, but living in the village is being much harder than I imagined. People don't accept me, they look at me with distrust, and I feel like a stranger all the time. Plus, this job offer is everything I've always dreamed of. But how can I leave everything now with the baby on the way?" Sophie leaned in, listening attentively, with that look of understanding that always calmed her. "Claire, I understand how complicated all this is, but you have to think about what's most important to you now. I'm not telling you to ignore your dreams, but maybe the issue isn't just the job offer. It's your life in the village. Have you talked to Jack about how you feel there?" Claire sighed, feeling the weight of the question. "Not as I should. I don't want to burden him. He's so committed to making our life work. But for me, I don't know if I can live like this forever." Only you can know that, Claire, Sophie said affectionately, but you need to be honest with yourself. If the village isn't the right place for you, maybe it's time to consider your options. What you've built with Jack is important, but you also have to be happy. Claire remained silent, Sophie's words resonating in her mind. She knew her friend was right, but she didn't expect it to be so difficult to admit what she felt. That same afternoon, while walking through the streets of the city, Claire ran into someone she hadn't seen in years. David, her ex-boyfriend. He was as handsome as she remembered, and the unexpected encounter took her completely by surprise. "Claire, is that you?" David said, smiling as he approached. Claire felt her heart racing. She didn't expect to see him again, much less at that moment in her life, so full of uncertainties. "David, what a surprise to see you here," she replied, trying to disguise her nerves. They talked briefly, and David, still charming and with his enveloping style, revealed that he had never forgotten her. He mentioned that he thought about her constantly, and that perhaps at another time in life they could have been happy together. "You know, Claire, I always imagined how it would have been if we had stayed together," David said, looking into her eyes with an intensity that left her disconcerted. That conversation left Claire restless. That night, she found herself thinking about how her life would have been if she had stayed with David. Would they have formed a family? Would she have continued with her career in the city, without having to choose between love and ambition? But while these questions ran through her mind, something much stronger began to emerge: the longing for Jack. Claire realized that despite the doubts, uncertainties, and dilemmas, what she felt for Jack was different from anything she had experienced before. It was deep, true, and unbreakable. The next morning, David invited her for coffee. Claire accepted, but that encounter brought her more clarity than confusion. When he tried to get closer, perhaps hoping to rekindle something between them, Claire felt immense anguish. "I can't," she said, moving away from David. "I can't do this." At that moment, she knew what she had to do. Claire ran back to the hotel, packed her bags, and took the first plane back to the village. That night, when Claire got out of the taxi in front of the small mud house she now called home, her heart was beating fast and her emotions were running high. The fatigue from the trip vanished before the whirlwind of thoughts and feelings. Jack, who was sitting on the small porch, was surprised to see her arrive at that hour. He quickly stood up, concerned when he noticed the tension on her face. "Claire," he asked, walking towards her, "what happened? You didn't say you'd be back so soon." Claire sighed, feeling the weight of the words she had to say. "Jack, I need to tell you what happened in the city." Her voice trembled, but she knew she had to be honest. "I received a job offer, one of those I've always dreamed of. And I ran into someone, an ex-boyfriend. He tried to get close, and for a moment I felt so confused." Jack remained silent. His face hardened, but he kept his gaze fixed on Claire, waiting for her to continue. "I was thinking about what my life would be like if I had stayed in the city, what it would be like with him. But Jack, the moment he tried something, Claire paused, overcome with emotion. "I could only think of you, of us. I realized that no matter what the city offers me, my happiness isn't there. It's here, with you." Silence fell for a few seconds. Jack lowered his head, struggling to process everything he had just heard. Claire approached, taking his hand firmly. "I know what I did could have hurt you, and I deeply regret it. But I've come back, Jack. I came back because I love you. I don't want to lose everything we've built." Jack took a deep breath, looking into Claire's eyes. "Claire, I understand." His voice was soft but firm. "Life in the village is difficult. I know it hasn't been easy for you, and I can't blame you for thinking about returning to the city. But I love you, Claire, and the fact that you've come back, that means everything to me." Jack stepped forward and wrapped Claire in a strong embrace. Both felt relief, as if a great cloud of uncertainty had finally dissipated. "I forgive you," Jack murmured. "The only thing that matters is that you're here now." The two remained there, embraced in the silence of the night, feeling the warmth of love and forgiveness that enveloped them. In the days that followed, Claire began to reconnect with the village in a way she had never imagined. One day, while doing her weekly shopping at the local market, she saw an elderly woman stumble and fall to the ground, dropping all her bags. Immediately, Claire ran to help her. "Are you okay, Mum?" Claire asked, helping her to get up. The woman, visibly embarrassed, nodded with a small smile. "Yes, my child. I'm just a little too old to be walking around here with these heavy bags." Looking at the fallen groceries on the ground, Claire saw that many of the items were damaged or unusable. Without hesitation, she took the bag and went directly to the market to buy everything again. "You don't need to do this, dear," the woman said, surprised by the gesture. "Of course it's necessary," Claire replied with a kind smile. "It's the least I can do." The woman was deeply moved. When the two returned to the elderly woman's house, she invited Claire in for coffee. During the conversation, Claire discovered that this woman was one of the most respected and beloved people in the village, a true elder to whom everyone turned for advice. The conversation flowed naturally, and the woman was impressed with Claire's kindness and respect. "You're different from what they say, my child. I've heard a lot about you, but I think no one really knows you." Claire smiled with a touch of sadness. "I've tried to adapt. Sometimes it's difficult. I think some people aren't ready to accept someone from outside." The elderly woman shook her head. "It's not easy to be accepted in such a closed place, but with time, they'll see your value just as I saw it today." Over time, the elderly woman's words began to spread throughout the village. People started to see Claire differently, as someone who truly cared about the community. They began to invite her to local events, to get to know the inhabitants better, and little by little, Claire began to make sincere friendships. Meanwhile, Jack worked hard to build a new house on a larger piece of land he had managed to buy with the sales of his fruits and vegetables. He wanted to give Claire and the baby they were expecting a comfortable place to live. And finally, the day came when the house was ready. "Here it is, Claire," Jack said with a proud smile, "our new home." The house was simple but cozy, with a spacious porch overlooking the vast field that Jack cultivated. Claire felt a wave of happiness seeing how hard Jack had worked to create that space for them. "It's perfect," Claire said with eyes full of tears. "Perfect for us." Months later, with the arrival of their daughter, the small home they had built together was finally complete. Claire looked around, seeing Jack cradling the baby in his arms, and the love she felt for him and for the new life they had built grew every day. She knew that her happiness wasn't in the city, in her career, or in great achievements. Her true happiness was there, in the village, with Jack, her daughter, and the love they shared. Life, as simple as it was, finally made sense. Claire and Jack's story teaches us that many times, true happiness is not found in great achievements or in the places where we think we'll find fulfillment, but in the people with whom we decide to share our lives and in the love we build along the way. In 1 Corinthians 13:7, the Bible reminds us that love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Just like Claire and Jack, we are called to believe in the power of love, which can overcome challenges, differences, and moments of uncertainty. By choosing love and forgiveness, we find the strength to build a full and true life, even in the most unexpected places. If you like this story, don't forget to comment. Let us know below which country you're watching this video from. It's a joy to get to know our subscribers better. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this and leave your like. God bless you and see you next time.